To Bleav in Chargers with the great Lorenzo Neal, Matt Money Smith here. It is presented by FanDuel. A huge thank you to our partners over at FanDuel. Love it that we are rolling this thing forward. Continues to get more and more popular, and a big part of that, and really most of it, is due to all of you. So thank you for watching, for listening, for commenting, for reposting, for sharing with your friends. As the season is upon us, we are now 2 preseason games in. We got that extra one ahead of everyone else. The Saints played their first one against the Chargers on Sunday. It was a heck of an affair. We're going to dig deep into it. But, Lo, I want to get started with you because you made yourself available on another pod, and it's getting quite the traction. You and Julian Edelman hanging out. What a cool opportunity, and what an incredible conversation you had there, dude.
It was money. It was just great just to talk shop with Julian and with Jules and just go down memory lane and just, talk about integral parts of the game and just, moments. We talked about one of the things that I think was awesome, just talking about when did we belong? When did you feel? He asked me, when did I feel that I belonged in the league? And of course, I asked him the same thing. And it was interesting to say, hey, 7th-round pick, said he was up and down at practice, thinking he's had good practice. Is he going to get cut? Counting receivers and then he goes in Tom's first game back after the ACL. Wes is out. He catches the first pass from Tom. He's like, okay, I think I'm okay. Then he goes down on kickoff, makes the tackle, and then he houses one on a punt return. And he's like, I think I'm going to be on this team. So it's just great when you have great stories like that. And just about because the league, you just never know,
Yeah.
when you're going to have that opportunity to make a play.
It's a perfect transition into Caleb Murphy, and here's someone, and I'll tell you, there is something about it, and it's a spot you played, Low. You're a dude that was a Titan, of course. You were part of one of the greatest plays in the history of the NFL, the Music City Miracle. Your hands touched that ball first before you pitched it over there to Frank Wycheck. But for whatever reason, Titans work out for the Chargers. There's something about that scheme with Mike Vrabel and what he was running down there that works with Jesse Minter. And you think about Elijah Molden, who was, basically thrown away for a 7th-round pick a year later and earned himself a $20+ million contract with the Chargers, an integral part of why they're playing 3 safeties all the time with Healoe Gilman and Derwin James. Same thing happened with Tier Tart, who was Tennessee Titan for a minute, and the latest to flash, and he was on the team last year. They picked him up after he was waived midway through the season to the practice squad, and he made himself available for, I think, 3 games. Had a couple tackles, but Caleb Murphy, 3rd season out of Ferris State, and I think it's a position that we had a lot of question marks around going into the draft because Joey Bosa's gone, Khalil Mack, Bud Dupree is brought back. They signed him to an extra year, and Tuli Tuipulotu is expected to take that next step, but you need 4. Who's that 4th edge going to be? When they drafted Kyle Kennard, it looked like that was going to be the answer, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, who had 11.5 sacks. But it's been Caleb Murphy. It's been Caleb Murphy in training camp when you see him rotate in. And I'll tell you, he was great in the Hall of Fame game. And it popped into my mind because of what you said about Julian, about how, I made this special teams tackle. And Caleb has been exceptional on special teams. He made a special teams tackle in that game on Sunday against the Saints. But he had 2 sacks, should have probably had 3. I think that 3rd one should have been credit to it. And, of course, one of them was a Joey Bosa special, little hand fighting, gets by his the offensive lineman and ends up getting a strip sack. What an effort. And I think he cemented himself on the 53, and even more so than just making the 53. It looks like he's that 4th edge rusher that's going to get some snaps now and be part of that rotation.
Yeah, and like you said, opportunities never lost is given to someone else. And I'm a strong believer in that. We talked about how Jules and how I, you came into this league. Here's this Murphy. You're watching how Kyler Murphy, he tries to come in this league. He's on practice squad. You don't know. He flashes here and there. You're like, okay, here's a practice guy. And just watching this guy continue to go out and make plays, understanding, hey, look, they drafted a guy. You're way down the depth chart.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be here. You're a guy that we're saying, yeah, we're going to use you on practice squad. Oh, we'll still bring you to camp, but you're not really making the team. You're not really locked. Coaches and that staff is saying, okay, we're going to give this guy a chance, but you're not really making the team. He said, you know what? I'm going to seize this opportunity. And you got to see the motor. This guy keeps going, relentless, fighting, arm fighting, getting in there, hand fighting, and saying, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make the last chop. I'm going to do whatever I got to do, dip, rip, to make these sacks. So you love to see guys like that flash and play well. And like you said, I think he's got a good chance of making this ball club now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I got it right. I'm over here at FanDuel.com, and I checked a second ago, but shame on me for not paying attention. Here we go. I think the Chargers are laying 3.5 as the road team at SoFi. Yeah, so on Sunday, and I bring it up because I think the one thing that's apparent is, yeah, so what does FanDuel have, Mess? Yeah, minus 3.5 and minus 120
Hmm.
on the money line. So over-unders at 37.5 right now there at FanDuel. What does that tell me? It tells me what I've seen and what you've seen and what so many that are watching these preseason games have seen. Chargers got depth, man. They got depth not for days, for weeks. They got depth for months right now. When someone like Caleb Murphy is playing like that, think about after the Hall of Fame game. Who are we talking about? Number 46, Nico Reed, man. Look at this undrafted corner out of
Yeah,
Oregon. Too small. That's why he wasn't drafted, maybe. He plays a lot of press. There's concerns. Can a 5'9", 180-pound corner play press man, which was his specialty at Oregon in the NFL? So, undrafted free agent. He sees it. He knows it. He explodes when he sees it, and he's able to make that 60-yard interception against the Lions. And then what do we have this week? Undrafted free agent out of Rutgers, number 39, Eric Rogers. Now, this is a different body type, right? 6'2", 189, didn't really flash that big time speed for whatever reason at the pro day, but he's a guy that, again, and this I think speaks to Steve Klinkscale, our secondary coach, to Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, that for the second week in a row, you've got an undrafted free agent that's out there with a 43-yard pick six, with one of the great interceptions we've seen, that full extension on his second interception. And it speaks to what Joe Ortiz and his staff are seeing, what these coaches are doing, these position coaches and the coordinators, and what they're building, here in year two, how much depth they have, because injuries are not, a possibility. They're mandatory. I should say
right.
mandatory.
Well,
It's definite. It's going to happen.
unmutable, right?
Yeah, and so I think that's one of the reasons why you see something like Chargers minus 3.5 in a preseason game, because the depth is coming up to play, man. It's showing itself.
It's scary, and it makes it tough. Scary, and it's a good scary because it makes it tough on Jesse Minter and these guys and these coaching staff and the organization, because you can't hide these guys. These guys are making play.
Right.
You look at Nico Reed, you look at Eric Rogers, two DBs back to back. Guys are getting interceptions, faking them pick six, taking them back to the house 2 weeks in a row. That's tough to do, and let alone if you're talking about the pros, NFL. Two games. I know it's preseason, but two preseason games back to back pick sixes. That is a rarity, and that just tells you. See, athletic ability, money. You know this. It gets you in the league. Technique and attention to details keep you in the league, and that's one thing. Mentor Jesse Mentor and this defense and the DB coach and all those. The technique that they're teaching, getting guys athletically so they can cover. Okay, but then here's your technique. Make sure you take away the inside, do this, do those press, and they're doing the small details, and that's what makes it tough because it's athletic ability, all things being equal. Who's making these plays? And right now, a lot of guys are taking turn making plays.
Yeah, I think one of the things that it was almost a pick six in that first game. It was a 60-yard
Right?
return,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
a
bring it up
tackle on
though
the 3 yard
because
line. Right.
yeah, I bring it up because I think that's what we've seen in all of these interceptions, right? You had Miles Purchase interception, 45-yard return. Nico Reed, 60-yard return. Eric Rogers, 43-yard return for the pick six. Like, that's being coached into them. You make that pick, let's go. Let's get some field, in front of us and make this as an explosive a play and turnover as possible. And I think one of the things that's gone into this, and the reason this particular group, we talked about this before the draft. We talked about this before training camp. Like, we could see that secondary was sort of, I don't want to say a question mark, like in a negative, but it's like, wow, they signed Dante Jackson, $6 million there. They bring in Benjamin St. Juste. He's the body type, right, that Jesse Minter's talked about, that long 6 foot, what is he, like 6'2"? Let's see, I want to get it right just to make sure that, where are you? Come on, St. Juste. Give it to me, baby. Here we go. 6'3", 205. So it's a totally different body type. And you had the two fifth-round rookies last year, Cam Hart, who struggled to stay healthy, Tarheeb Still, and then you go out and you have all these undrafted free agents. And I think what they all see is, oh, I can go get this. That they're rotating. There is no first team in training camp practices. Sometimes it's St. Juice, sometimes it's Jackson, sometimes it's Still and Hart. Nico Reed got put out there after his big game against the Hall of Fame, against the Lions in the Hall of Fame game. He got mixed in with the first team, and I think when you're an Eric Rodgers, when you're Triquez Bridges, who was drafted in the 7th round, I think what you're seeing is what you just mentioned, Lo, and that's opportunity is there, man. It is there to make this team.
And you know what? I think too, money. A lot of it has to do with the way they come after you up front. I mean, when you can get after guys up front, the quarterback's got to get rid of the ball. And the way that the corners slough off, they play off and they play inside. So when you go and throw that out route, the DBs look like they're the anticipation to jump those out routes. And so you watch the technique that they're playing. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, they're getting deep, but they're playing with patience. I think it was 37. There was Eric Rodgers, though. Didn't he get beat for that long catch with his over the top?
It was Bridges. That was
Bridges.
Triquez, I think, 31.
Yeah, 31. Yeah. So, and so at times that's where teams are going to have to make them start playing them honest and saying, we got to run by them. We got to give them enough time to try to. So I think you'll start seeing teams in the season try to take the deeper shots because of the fact the Chargers do a great job of playing off man and letting things develop in front of them. And they do a great job of just jumping and collapsing to the ball because a lot to do with the technique that they're playing.
Yeah, and when you talk about up front, I just pulled up the numbers here through PFF, and so in these 2 games, Caleb Murphy has had 28 pass rushes. He's
Wow.
got 2 sacks. He should have 3. He's got 3 hurries, and he's got 5 total pressures in just 28. That's a 15% clip of a pass rush win rate that he's operating at. And I think you said it. And Tremont Morris Brash is another one that's really flashed. He's got 6 pressures in 32 snaps. And then the better part of all that, though, is when you go through it and you see that, oh, shoot, that's why it's all weird. Let me get these. Let me just get the entire team in here so I can go Chargers only and filter that to make sure I got it right. So here we go. When you get into it, right? So Tremont Morris Brash, 6. Murphy, 5. You've got your probably 6th or 7th edge in Kylan Guidry, who's got 4 pressures, 4 hurries on 34 pass rushes. And the next guy I want to get into, because, man, this is when you see it, you know it. And Lo, I know you see it better than I do, but their 3rd round rookie, Jamaree Caldwell, man, he's got it, man. Whatever it is, he got. And this is, remember, Hall of Fame game, Detroit playing all backups. Saints were playing their starting offensive line. You got 4 first-round picks on that offensive line. Cesar Ruiz, Penning. Who else was out there? Fuago was out there. Like, all of those guys are out there. The guy they just drafted another O lineman in the 1st round. All of them are out there. That's who the Chargers' 2nd and 3rd string defensive line players are rushing against. And you got Jamaree Caldwell out there beating a double team for a sack. He's getting double teamed. He's
Yeah.
able to keep his head up, get his vision on that quarterback, shed, and make that sack. Man, he has really flashed in these 2 preseason games.
Caldwell has. You just see the motor and see this guy taking on doubles and be able to split them, be able to move the pile and create a new line of scrimmage. A lot of guys, you see them, boom, they go 1-2, and all of a sudden they're just standing there and they're standing there to dance and just trying to get their hands up to maybe bat a ball. Here's a guy that's pushing the pile and creating a new line of scrimmage, not giving that quarterback a room to step up and climb in the pocket. And then it just becomes a sea of blue and Charger, lightning bulbs just all around. So you see the quarterback gets fidgety because you make him make those throws in a phone booth. You make him uncomfortable in there, and then you see balls thrown, balls getting away from the quarterback, getting happy feet in the pocket. And Caldwell, here's a guy you said 3rd round. He is shown that you got a player, and like you said, he has that it factor, that drive, that motivation, that play where you just see this guy like, okay, I'm almost there, and just still have another burst. You're like, okay, I'm there. I got one more in me to go make this play. So you love to see that, especially when you're talking about those big fellas.
Yeah, look, it's a great problem to have, but you don't want to see any of them go. You're so excited. Like Tremont Morris Brash, I mentioned, he's a really, really good special teamer. He's a core 4 guy for Ryan Ficken. But we're talking about, like, as I'm looking at it, right? So you've got, like, I don't know how you don't keep Tony Jefferson. I just don't know how, unless you think you can plant him on the practice squad. He's in his 11th season. He's a vet. He is so important to this team. I Bleav just from a
Leadership.
leadership heartbeat. A heart. I mean, you can speak to that, Lo, just how important those guys are in the room. And it's not a, hey, let's keep this guy for morale and for vet leadership. No, he had a sack this week. He had an interception last week. And then on top of all of that, and by the way, he had the most violent tackle in the game in that Lions game when he had that run, when that run fit got away from the backer and he ends up swooping around and smacking that guy. Like, I just don't know how. And now you're talking about keeping 5 safeties. Like, I don't know how he doesn't make the team. I really don't. I think he's too important. When coach says competitors welcome, he's the ultimate competitor. And I think it's I don't know. I have a hard time believing he's not going to make the 53.
When you have a guy like Jefferson, you think about the guys that you have on that defense. You're talking about you have a all pro safety, can play in the box, can do all those things, but Jefferson guys feed off of as well because of his aura, because of his personality, in the way that he plays. And here's a guy in his 11th year. He teaches technique. Here's a guy that's helping guys. Like, man, everyone's asking, how are you around the ball? Jeff, how are you, Jefferson? How are you always around the ball? What do you do? You're a ball hawk. So you got to realize, coaches, players, you don't think coaches saying, go talk to Jefferson. Yeah. Go talk to him. Because they know what he brings to the table. Because it's not that he's the fastest guy. It's not that he's the most athletic guy on the field. But you just watch him. He baits the quarterback the first week, and throwing that outside pass, thinking he's going to got a receiver because he's got the DB beat by a step. But Jefferson looks inside and he's already heading over there after the ball's already in the air. So he knows what he's doing. It's those little nuances that you're talking about. Here's why this guy makes a team. Here's why we can't get rid of him, because what he not only does play on the field, but his play in the classroom and on the field to help others around him continue to grow. And yes, he's playing at a high level in his 11th year.
Yeah, think about, how they found him. They found him in the scouting department at Baltimore. Not playing football. He is scouting for a year, and they decide to reach out and say, I think you might still be able to play some football. Why don't you get out here? Let's see what we can do. And it reminds me, Lo, of how hard it is to find great candidates when you're looking to hire. And not enough candidates are there with the right skills or the right experience. And that is where ZipRecruiter comes in. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you, and they do it fast. And right now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. That's AUDIO. And immediately after you post your job, because of ZipRecruiter's smart technology, they identify top talent for your role specifically and quickly. They have powerful matching technology that are going to start showing you qualified people for it. Plus, ZipRecruiter lets you connect with top candidates ASAP. You can use their pre-written invite to apply messages. That way, you're personally reaching out to your favorite candidates without taking a lot of your time trying to craft those things and word them perfectly. You'll encourage them to apply sooner. So ditch the other hiring sites. Let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for. That needle in the haystack, the guy in the scouting department that you think can end up being a free safety. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So try it for free right now for free at our exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/audio. That is ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And just kind of putting a button on Tony is, we were talking to defensive coordinator Jesse Minter before the game, and you could just hear it in his voice about the journey, about how the journey helps with the results and helps with the effort. And here's an undrafted free agent because he hurt himself, yet he still went out and competed in his pro day and didn't put up the numbers he wanted. So he goes undrafted, gets signed by Arizona. Baltimore recognizes it, right? Then he goes to play on that elite right as it's working, man. He gets his contract. Now you're good, man. You've got your tens, your millions of dollars to take care of you and your family moving forward. Bang, serious injury. And was never quite right after that. And, came back, was still a really good player. and kind of you bounce around a little bit and then says, all right, maybe it's just it. That's what it was. And I'm done. And he gets into a front office. And I mean, shoot, how many people can play like Lo Neal 17 years? That's the exception to the rule. And I love that he just said, I don't want to walk away yet, man. Even though I got a job and the Ravens are employing me and I can maybe start this path, in a front office and try to be the next Ozzie Newsome and learn from Ozzie. But instead, he's like, I want to keep it going, man. And you know what it means. Like, what does it mean, Lo, to say I've been out for a year, but I'm gonna get back in? The kind of effort you have to put to make that happen.
It's honestly, it's remarkable to go from being on the couch and not training to be a pro athlete. I train, but I don't train anything like I trained when I was playing in the NFL. I'll still go bench, do squats, do everything. It's a totally different mindset. It's a totally different feel of your body. For TJ to take a year off, and for the scouting department, for these guys to still say, yeah, he's over in the office. Let me give him a call and see if we can get this guy to come back on the field. For him to have the 1-2, but then have the 1-2 is one thing, but then have the will and desire to go out there and show up and show out and show and just show that you still have it and play at the elite level that he's playing at after 11 years. It is really, really, really remarkable to see what Tony Jefferson is doing and what he brings to this team and this organization. And yeah, it's tough because it's you have the 53-man roster is going to be very, very tough for these Chargers because they have a lot of big decisions to make because there's a lot of guys that are capable of playing.
Yeah, the other one, and I mentioned that Caleb should have had 3 sacks instead of 2. So you had Jamaree Caldwell have the one. We mentioned Tony Jefferson had the one. The other one went to Marlo Wax, and it's a cool name. And Marlo's another undrafted free agent that they found. And at the linebacker position, Lo, you know how it is, man. When a guy can see it, that's how you pile up 9 tackles, 9 solo tackles. All those tackles are solos. No missed tackles, 9. So he was all over that field. And the kind of, the interesting part of that is you've got Junior Colson, right? And he gets dealt a bad hand last year. He's drafted in the 3rd round. He's the captain of the Michigan Wolverines squad that wins the national championship, one of the most impactful players on that team, the most impactful defender on that team. And we're expecting huge things with him next to Deion Henley. And then you get out to camp and you're like, okay, it's Deion and Denzel, and that's what it was last year. So, and it worked great. So let's keep that going. Then Denzel comes off and you see, you see Troy Dye get in there and you're like, oh, okay, well now, and Troy played great last year because Junior was not healthy, had the appendectomy, and then I think he rolled an ankle, and it just kind of the season got on top of him. And now we saw, Junior get all those snaps in the Hall of Fame game, and there was some good in there, but just you could see it wasn't, he got sucked in a lot, and you had a lot of action happening on the edges because he's just kind of getting stuck there. And it felt like they gave all those snaps to Marlo Wax this week. And man, you want to talk about a guy that did something with him. That's what I'm talking about when we mentioned the FanDuel -3.5. Like, it's an undrafted free agent out of Syracuse, and he's out there making 9 solo tackles, getting a sack, impactful on special teams. Again, just trying to figure out how they're going to put this roster together. And do you carry a 5th linebacker? Because Wax has been so good.
Is anyone injured that you can put one on IR for the year? I think you're going to have to. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they deploy these people and say, okay, we're going to put this guy on PUP for 8 weeks. We're going to see what we can do and then see what shakes out because you just have too much talent to just let walk. So I think that they say you're injured this way. You're going to be injured. We have to release you, but we're going to protect you by putting you on here because you never know. And is just Max, just Marlo, is he just a flash? 9 tackles is unfriggin' believable. And playing special teams, it was just a one-off, or is this guy just did he take his Rick Fuel the morning before and just came out and just played lights out, hair on fire? Because I'm telling you, it's hard to get 9 tackles on any level, and then let alone go out and play special teams. So you have a guy that seems like with the motor and how instinctive he played. You watch Marlo sideline and sideline. Here's a guy that's on every tackle, and even if he's not getting the tackle, he's around the ball. It makes it tough because and I know it's no way that a team wouldn't pick him up and at least put him on practice squad. No way.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Lo, I think I'm glad you brought that up and you phrased it that way about the IR, because I think what we're seeing right now is, we're still, we're still 4 weeks out, right?
Right,
We're still 4 weeks out from Brazil. So I don't know what can happen between now and then with Najee, but he is still just walking around the field in a helmet with a visor. And I was doing a little bit more work yesterday at training camp than we've seen, but it seems like that, his agent called it a superficial injury. I find that almost impossible to believe, considering how long he's been out. I mean, the word superficial to me suggests minor,
right.
and you're not going to miss a month. I
No,
mean, that's July 4th. It's August 13th when we're recording this. Like, that's not the way these things work. So that then opens that opportunity for that running back room. And we've said his name. He's been injured through a lot of training camp. He was finally out there in this game in this past week. And we mentioned Raheem Sanders, Rocket Sanders out of South Carolina, largest guarantee of any undrafted free agent on this team, 60 grand, and a three-sport athlete when he was in high school. So you're talking about, track and basketball and high school football, obviously. And then you look at sort of the type of back that Harbaugh likes, that Greg Roman likes, and you see the measurables and you're like, oh, 6 foot, 230. And then you see the explosion out there in that game in his first bit of action. He ends up rushing 10 times for 42 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown was beautiful, and he read it perfectly. Hole closes, he bounces it. And here's, again, a 6 foot, 235-pound guy that beats the corner to the pylon to score that touchdown. And I do think exactly what you mentioned, in the case of Najee and where he is right now. The guy's never missed a game in his career, but missing all at training camp, I don't know how that's going to work. And I think that opens that door for Raheem, for Naheem Miller-Hines, for Kamani Vidal, Hassan Haskins, Amari, and I think you're talking about, maybe Najee on that IR, and that opens that door for Raheem to make it. And I think that battle's going to be between Kamani Vidal and Naheem Miller-Hines as to which of those two is going to be that fourth back.
yeah, and Raheem's played well, like you said, big guy. You seen the speed, 230 pounds, can be able to bounce, beat the corner to the end zone to the pylon. And you watch the way Vardel's played. I mean, here's a guy that it's looked undersized. We call him a little water bug, catch the ball at the backfield, but he's playing better. That you've seen the
Yeah.
maturity of this. He's here to compete, and that's what's great, and it's tough. And I don't want. I'm glad that you and we're not making these decisions. We will say
Yeah.
we'll call the league and say we're keeping them all. You can't make us cut them because it's really breeding some great competition, and you see it in the running back room. These guys are getting their opportunity, and they're not squandering it. Guys aren't putting the ball necessarily on the ground. You see a team. Yeah, this game was a little lackluster. It's preseason. It was kind of you say okay, preseason game, but you just watch though the intensity and the attention to detail. This team create turnovers, opportunity, the short field, what the defense. It's just this team is they're putting the hand to barn. They're preparing, so
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. When it comes down to what they're going to do with Najee, do you put him on IR? Is he ready to go week one? And if he is, what are you going to get? He's not in necessarily the great shape. He hasn't been doing football contact. He hasn't had the reps, hasn't been in the offense. So does it behoove this team to go with a veteran guy? Or do you say, hey, look, we can get by with Raheem. We can get by, with Hampton. So it's going to be interesting call, not just at that position, but the wide receiver position, and like we talked about, the DBs and corners.
And I think, like, the thing about all of this too is it's so important to remember is you're talking about guys that, they're the ones that are playing, so we get excited. But these are guys that you, for the most part, you don't expect to see the field. Like, it's a fourth running back battle when we suspect that Marion Hampton's going to get 80% of the carries. Hassan Haskins, who played great in that game and has played great in the preseason and has been, a core four guy on special teams. He's the best pass pro back out there. Like, he's making the team, and he's playing. He had a huge game. What did he rush for? He had 6 carries, 33 yards,
The big
a
guy.
long of 12. Like, he rushed really well, and he's making the team. So technically, and I bring it up though because it makes it interesting. If Najee's healthy, it's a three-way competition between Naheem Miller-Hines, the Kamani Vidal, your 6th-round pick last year, and Raheem Sanders, your highest guarantee undrafted free agent this year, for that one spot. And we know that special teams is so important in that room. And when you have, Raheem Sanders, special teamer, obviously Naheem, special teamer, had unfortunate for Naheem, and I think may have impacted his way to make this team a little bit. Those 2 muffed punts, not good. It's a bummer because he's an electric punt returner, and those 2 got away from him. And Kamani Vidal, who I think has really improved his pass pro lately. So that's going to be a heck of a competition. But ultimately, if everything's right, you're talking about an 80-20 split, or I should say, a 95% of the carries are going to Hampton and Najee Harris, and 5% are going to one of these other 2. So
True.
I think you got to keep it in perspective. And, when it comes to the back end of the roster.
And what you said in that, and when you were talking about that, is special teams. And that's what's going to come down. That's going to be the tiebreaker. Who can play special teams for you, and what they're going to give you, and how do they play special teams? Because there's linebackers that we talked about. Hey, his linebackers, it's going to be tight. Not a lot of seats there. So who's going to is it a running back and a linebacker? Who's going to play better? Who can play more special teams? And who's playing more effectively? So I think that you're going to see guys, and you already see it. Guys are making plays on special teams. It's a reason why special teams is such a high priority for this Chargers organization.
Especially, because of what they lost. They lost Simi Fehoko. They lost Nick Neiman. Like, they lost their special teams aces in the offseason. The interesting one's going to be Delshon Phillips, who was signed, because of Ryan Ficken's prior experience with him, in the hopes that he would replace Nick Neiman as the special teams ace, a guy with some veteran experience. He's just not been able to get on the field. The guy's been dinged up the whole time. And so when you're talking about that linebacker spot, and it's like, okay, you brought Delshon in to be this special teams ace. Can you get that from Marlo Wax? Can you, is that kind of where we're at now? And how comfortable is Ryan Ficken with that versus, going up against first team players on these sort of things, and trusting that, an undrafted free agent's going to be able to carry you through there. But those are the sort of decisions that are going to be interesting. And we got 2 more games and a bunch more practices to figure out. It's a bummer that they had to cancel the joint practice with the Rams, because that's the stuff that tells you a lot. That's more valuable because it's 1v1s, and that starts to give you a better idea. But because of all these injuries, and I think, before we wrap it up, Lo, it happened right after we recorded it, the loss of Rashawn Slater, and gut punch of all gut punches. You're talking about, I've said it before. I mean, you can make a case that he's the best player on the team, that just in terms of the position, look, Justin Herbert is the most important player on the team. You lose Justin Herbert and you're like, okay, how are we going to manage this season? You lose Rashawn Slater and it's like, okay, how can we make this work? What are the pieces that we need to move around to make this work? So it's different in that, but I just mean in relation, he's a top 3 tackle, and in the conversation is the best tackle when he's 100% healthy in the NFL. And to lose that with the way these guys want to play, that was a calling card of this team. We've got these 2 tackles that we don't have to help. And if you see us come out in 13, and here comes Scott Matlock, Tucker Fisk, and Will Dissly with Joe Alton Slater, you better look out, because here they come. And it was one of those things that helped create an identity in what we thought this team was going to be. So when you lose Rashawn Slater, I don't know if there's another team in the league that is better prepared for that, because you have Joe Alt, who now slides over to left tackle and is in that conversation as one of the elite left tackles in the league. I believe that. I think he's ready to take that step to be in that. He's a top 5 tackle at left tackle. So that helps. And now you just send that help over to the right side that you didn't have to before.
Was Alt more equipped? He playing left. He played left more.
Played left all through college. Notre Dame, left All-American,
so he's going home.
All that.
So he's going home.
Yeah. Remember, he did it in week 18 against the Raiders. Didn't allow a single pressure.
Right. And you can't replace, like you just alluded to, you can't replace a Joe Alt. You can't replace Slater. You can't replace an Alt. They're just too good. There are not enough of those big men on the earth.
Right.
So how do you patch this? How do you say, well, it can be good enough? I know what you're saying. You can still go 13, three tight ends, one back. Okay. What's the alternative, and how does this team look moving forward?
So the
Is it a
one thing to remember,
trade?
well, I think you hit on it, Low. I think the one thing to remember is how many teams can you think of that have an elite pair of tackles? They don't. It's just there's not.
No.
You said it. There's not enough big men in the world that can play with that size, that strength, and be that nimble to have two. Look, the Eagles have it. Mailata and Johnson. That's really it. Outside of that, you're talking about, oh yeah, this tackle, Penei Sewell's really good. Is Decker elite? He's really good. So for the Chargers, I think it's Joe Alt can be elite. And Trey Pipkins, I don't think was ever meant to play guard. He's a tackle. He's a little bit more of a finesse offensive lineman as opposed to that brute strength power that you need at the guard position. And I think it just got away from a little bit last year. So you put him back at tackle. Look, go back and look at Trey's 22 tape. He played great. Why do you think he got the extension? Because he played like, I shouldn't say great. He played really
Well,
good football
right.
that year. And so to me, if the rest of it is right, if Becton is healthy, and I don't know if that's going to be the case, the guy's been gone for 2 weeks now. If Becton is healthy, if Zion can at least be Zion, the run blocker, and maybe he got a little bit more playing center here for these past 4 weeks to see it and because he picked up a couple stunts in that Hall of Fame game pretty well, then I think you can be okay. I think you can be okay because look, their tight ends can block their tails off, man. There is
No.
not a team in the league that's
Yeah.
got better blocking tight ends between
Agreed.
Disley and Fisk and Matlock. I count him as a fullback tight end, whatever, extra offensive lineman, whatever you want to call him. He's 305 pounds. So they can block. And it's apparent in these preseason games. You've seen that Matlock has taken that next step and is starting to figure that out. And he can be a real force in the blocking game. So I think that's just what we're going to see. I
Do
think
you
we're going to see a lot more of those tight ends out there.
Can you see a trade? Is this or do you say it's not that serious? They can patch this
Yeah.
together. We're not going to address the line. They bring anyone else in, or do you say you know what, they're okay? Guys are going to get cut still. You still have enough in the cupboard, so you don't think
Yeah.
anything that major happens.
I just think that, it's going to have to be someone in the last year of their deal if they're like a high end, if they're a high end tackle, right? Because you just handed Rashawn $114 million. So you're going to have somebody that's in the last year of their deal that's essentially just a rental for the year. And the problem is teams don't let those guys go. Like it's when we were talking about free agency and how can you get all this money and could you get more money? And it's like, maybe you cut Trey. And they were like, absolutely not. You're not cutting our swing tackle. He only makes $9 million a year. Everybody else was like, that guy makes $9 million a year and he might not see the field now that they signed Becton. And it's like, yeah, that's a bargain. That's a bargain as a swing tackle and someone that you think can be a 17-game starter if something tragic happens, as opposed to having a rookie, it being Branson Taylor or somebody like that, like that's what we're talking about, why you keep that guy. So who's out there? Jedrick Wills is out there. They signed a vet. They signed, where is he? David Sharp. And, he's in his, ninth year. It's someone that Mike Devlin's worked with at multiple stops. And so I think it's just someone that knows how he likes to play, how he wants to block. And he's just there as insurance for Trey. But I think this is probably the group they're going to go with unless something presents itself.
Right.
If a team cuts somebody or is willing to trade him for a late pick or whatever, I think this is probably what they're going with.
Yeah, and you just it's always tough, especially when you see a guy of that magnitude. That'd be like when I was playing with the Saints, a Willie Roaf getting hurt. I mean, that's the kind of tackle,
Yeah.
and that's high praise. Willie Roaf was arguably one of the greatest tackles to ever played. And you have a guy in Slater who's big, physical, like a Willie Roaf, can run block, and he could do it all, pass block, but just the mauler that he was in the run game, and it's just when you have that type of meat on that side, him and Trey coming at you, you're talking some big boys and just going to create that new line of scrimmage. So he's gonna be missed. He's
Yeah.
gonna be missed.
Big
It's just
time.
we know that, but it's like, hey, the show must go on, and that's why it's great that this team and this organization went out and we know that they upgraded at the running back position.
Yeah.
Your first two backs, think about it. Your number one and number two back on the team last year, you upgraded.
Yeah.
You upgraded from 1 and 2. So you got rid of 1 and 2 to bring in another 1 and 2. So think about what you the capital and what you expended to go out and get better in the run game. So this run game is still going to be very, very pivotal and crucial for this team to get where they want to get, because we know this schedule is going to be tough, and they start this thing off against Kansas City.
Yeah. I'll wrap it with this, Low, is, it wasn't really a great passing game for either quarterback. There just wasn't a lot out there. But what did we have? We had Taylor was 1 of 5 for 8 yards. He sailed 2 over the head of Conklin, had a couple opportunities, had KLS drop 1. Trey Lance completed just 50% of his passes for an average of 3.9 yards per pass, took 2 sacks, but we saw the legs of Trey Lance. We didn't see that in the Hall of Fame game. And you saw that. That's what makes him special. Here's a guy that passed for 2,700 yards and 32 touchdowns, and then rushed for, I think, 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns his junior season at North Dakota State when they won the national championship. So he put that on display with those back-to-back runs, right? It was 3 straight plays, 15, 14, it was 15, I think 10, and then the 5 to scramble in for the touchdown. And that's what he can do and other people can. So I think it's a legitimate quarterback competition. And I think Trey is in the lead right now to be the backup here.
Yeah, what I took away is besides the game was just you kept me entertained. Are you not entertained? You're
Right.
talking about your girl. She's like, go hit someone in the face. You're like, okay, she's pretty fired up. I was dying. This was your commentator. You guys are talking about what's the young lady?
Oh, Shannon.
Shannon, you're like, I'm leaving Shannon alone. Yeah, that's when you know you're feeling time. You're like, I'm leaving Shannon alone. Shannon's going. I don't want to come up there and punch in the face. So it was classic. I think the listeners and everyone got a kick out of it, Money. You did a great job.
Oh, thanks, man. By the way, I should mention this because I know that I'm his biggest fan, and I know there's other people out there around the Chargers and the media that take shots at him. I don't know why. I know he didn't have the college career he was supposed to, but I think they're hiding DJ. I think they're hiding him. You saw that pass. It was the best pass thrown. I mean, it was you want to talk about a young guy understanding how to put air under the ball, how to let your guy, Dale Von Campbell, just run right under that thing, and it was perfectly placed, and it just looked effortless, pushing that thing 50 yards down the field. And I think that's why you're not seeing him out there. I think they're like, you know what?
Bring him back. Keep him under the radar. Yeah.
Let's keep him here. Let's keep him on the practice squad. Let's unleash him next year in the preseason, and then get some calls from some teams and try to cash that thing in. I think that's what we very well could end up seeing, because he throws a pretty ball, man, and that was a beautiful throw in that game for 54 yards or 49 yards. It was fun. It was a fun game. Looking forward to this one against the Saints again. It's a deep team, and they play really, really well, and they play incredibly hard. And I think what you're looking at on Saturday is more of the same. Running backs, incredibly competitive. Wide receiver room, incredibly competitive, with guys like Dale Vaughn starting to raise their hand. Brennan Rice fighting for a practice squad spot, I think. And then on defense, man, that secondary, that defensive line, another Marlo Wax game. The safeties, Mickens is playing his tail off, man. That guy knows how to play football.
Little Mick's tough. He's in his family. It's in his blood.
Yeah. Exactly right. So we'll be back again next week. We'll break down preseason game 3, get ready for the 4th and final one against the 49ers. So it's moving, man. We're coming up on Brazil in no time, September 5th. And hey, boltsinbrazil.com, right, Lo?
That's it, baby. Bolts in Brazil. Go check it out. It's going to be a great time. Come hang out with your boy, Lo Neal.
All right. We'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody, for watching Bleav in Chargers, and Bolt Up.
Bolt up. Cheers.